Hello, Black Rock here in this room and Black Rock online. Pastor Steve here, introducing a very special guest here at Black Rock. We have our Pastor Emeritus, Pastor Stanley Allaby here today. He was the senior pastor here at Black Rock for 41 years. And,
Right, it's over.
That's right. And we actually have a milestone or two to just celebrate just before he brings us God's Word. The first milestone is that the transition between Pastor Allaby to me took place in mid-February 1997, which means that about 6 weeks ago, we had our 25th anniversary of the transition between us as senior leaders of this church. Now, the second milestone has nothing to do with me, unfortunately, and that is that December, Pastor Stanley Allaby celebrated 90 years young. Would you welcome Pastor Allaby? Thank you,
Thank
Pastor.
you. April Fool, I'm only 39. I'd like to speak today on just one verse and its implications for us. It's found in 1 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 10. And here the Apostle Paul says, "We are fools for Christ." Today is April 3rd. Friday was April 1st and known in many places as April Fool's Day. I remember when I was a little kid, we used to love to play tricks. We'd say to our parents, "You dropped your handkerchief," and they'd look, and "April Fool," and "Your shoe is untied," and they'd look, "April Fool," and we used to have a lot of fun with that. And that got me thinking of something else. It's dangerous to start thinking because it takes you down a road. But I remember when I was a teenager that there was a man in New England named Daddy Hall. He was a little eccentric, but he loved Jesus. And he had quite a witness all through New England. He had a sandwich board made with a sign in front and a sign in back, and he would wear that and walk down the main street of different towns. And as he approached, the people would read the sign, and it would say, "I'm a fool for Christ." And the people would laugh, and they'd point, "Yeah, he sure is a fool. This is ridiculous." And then he would walk by, and they'd still be following him, and the sign on his back said, "Whose fool are you?" It made a lot of people stop and think about a very important question. Satan wants to make fools out of all of us, and sometimes he does an awful good job. But what I want to share with you this morning is that some of the ways that Satan uses in order to try to make us be fools and laughingstock. The first one is by getting people to say and think, "There is no God." In Psalm 14:1, and then it's repeated again in Psalm 58, verse 1. It says, "The fool says in his heart, there is no God." But Psalm 19 says this, "The heavens declare the glory of God. The skies proclaim the work of his hands. Day after day, they pour out speech. Night after night, they display knowledge. There is no speech or language where their voice is not heard. Their voice goes out into all the earth, their words to the ends of the world. It was Abraham Lincoln who once said, "When I look around at the world, I can see how some people say there is no God. But when I look into the heavens, I don't see how anybody can say there is no God." Because God's power is seen. He has demonstrated his power for us. He spoke universe upon universe into being. He created 100 billion trillion stars. And whenever we study either from the microscope or the telescope, we see the power and the glory and the wonder of our Creator God. The one who created the atom, the one who designed DNA, the one who controls the migration of sparrows. He is God. In the fine-tuning of the universe's dimensionless constants is referred to as the Anthropic Principle. The strong Anthropic Principle goes further, referring to the observation that the fundamental constants, parameters, and characteristics of the universe must also be fine-tuned for life to be possible. Our Earth has 3 distinct motions. We travel at 1,000 miles an hour around our own axis. If that were only 100 times, we would burn and freeze. We are traveling 18.5 miles per second around the sun. If it was 100, we would burn and freeze. We are traveling 13 miles per second with the whole solar system. It's an amazing world, and God created it. Our Earth is tilted at 23 degrees. This is what gives us our seasons. If it were not tilted, vapors from the ocean would rise and cover north and south with ice and snow. If the crust of the earth were 10 feet thicker, there would be no oxygen to breathe. And on, science points out to us how wise, how powerful our God is. But the fool in his heart says, there is no God. Let's see what God says about this. In Romans 1, it says, the wrath of God is being revealed from heaven against all godlessness and wickedness of men who suppress the truth by their wickedness. Since what may be known about God is plain to them, because God has made it plain to them. For since the creation of the world, God's invisible qualities, his eternal power and divine nature have been clearly seen, being understood from what he has made, so that men are without excuse. For although they knew God, they neither glorified him as God nor gave thanks to him, but their thinking became futile and their foolish heart was darkened. Although they claimed to be wise, they became fools and exchanged the glory of the immortal God for images made to look like mortal man and birds and animals and reptiles. Therefore, God gave them over in the sinful desires of their hearts to sexual impurity, for the degrading of their bodies with one another. They exchanged the truth of God for a lie and worshiped and served created things rather than the Creator, who is forever blessed. Blaise Pascal was in his day a very famous mathematician, physicist, inventor, polemicist, and writer. He lived from 1623 to 1662. He was converted to Christ as an adult. And one work that he wrote is called The Wager Argument. It's short, it's concise, but please try to follow what he wrote. It goes like this: either God exists or he doesn't. A person is left with a wager. There are two choices in the wager. The first is to bet on God by believing in him and making a religious commitment. There are only two possible outcomes that may result from wagering on God, yet one is definitely positive, while the other is not clearly negative. As in any wager, an individual's choice must be either correct or incorrect. If a person believes in God and God does not actually exist, then the person stands to gain everything. The payoff for wagering correctly would include both earthly virtue and blessings and an infinite gain. On the other hand, if a person believes in God and God does not actually exist, that person really loses nothing. In terms of the cost-benefit analysis, the one who wagers for God has everything to gain and nothing to lose. The second choice is to bet against God by not believing in him and refusing to make a religious commitment. Of course, one's disbelief in God may be either correct or incorrect. But gambling on this choice can still lead to only two possible outcomes, and neither is good. If a person does not believe in God and God does not exist, then that person gains nothing. On the other hand, if a person does not believe in God and God actually does exist, that person stands to lose everything. The consequence for wagering incorrectly would involve an infinite loss, eternal exclusion from the life of God, or hell. In terms of a cost-benefit analysis, the one who wagers against God has nothing to gain and everything to lose. Given these two options, the prudent person would wager on God. If you win everything. If you lose, you lose nothing. Do not hesitate then. Wager that God exists. But the fool says in his heart, there is no God. But what does God say about all this? In Jeremiah 4:22, God says, my people are fools. They do not know me. They are skilled in doing evil. The second way that Satan tries to make fools out of us is by having us put our faith in things of this world. In Luke chapter 12, Jesus tells the story of a very successful person. He had a great year in agriculture. His barns were full. He said, I have no extra room for all I have. I will build new barns for myself. I will say to myself, you have plenty of good things laid up for many years. Take life easy. Eat, drink, be merry. But God said to him, you fool, this very night your life will be demanded from you. Then who will get what you have prepared for yourself? I read recently that one of the wealthiest men in the world died, and people were speculating, what did he leave? Everything. Everything. Have you ever seen a hearse pulling a U-Haul to the cemetery? Neither have I. If we live for this life and for its promises and its apparent benefits, we are wagering against our God. Don't ever let prosperity destroy you. In Proverbs 1:32, it says, the complacency of fools will destroy them. C.S. Lewis, in his book about a senior demon giving a junior demon advice, the senior demon said this, prosperity knits a man to the world. He feels that he is finding his place in it, while really it is finding its place in him. His increasing reputation, his widening circle of acquaintances, his sense of importance, the growing pressure of absorbing and agreeable work, all build up in him a sense of being really at home in earth, which is just what we want. Satan loves to make us fools by putting all of our faith in the things of this world. The third way that Satan works to make us fools is to have us build our life on a weak foundation. In Matthew 7, Jesus says this, everyone who hears these words of mine and puts them into practice is like a wise man who built his house on the rock. The rains came down, the streams rose, and the winds blew and beat against that house. Yet it did not fall because it had foundations on the rock. But everyone who hears these words of mine and does not put them into practice is like a foolish man who built his house on sand. The rain came, the streams rose, and the winds blew and beat against the house. and it fell with a great crash. On June 24th of last year, a 12-story condominium in Surfside, Florida, collapsed. 90 people were dead, 20-some were unaccounted for. And the purpose of the collapse was a faulty foundation. It was built on the sand. What a terrible mistake to build our lives on sand, but to build them rather on the rock, which is Jesus Christ. A fourth way that Satan loves to make us a fool is by having us to be unprepared for Christ's second coming. In Matthew 25, Jesus was teaching his disciples about his return. And this is what he said. At that time, the kingdom of heaven will be like 10 virgins who took their lamps and went out to meet the bridegroom. 5 of them were foolish, and 5 were wise. The foolish ones took their lamps, but did not take any oil with them. The wise, however, took oil in jars along with their lamps. The bridegroom was a long time in coming, and they all became drowsy and fell asleep. At midnight, the cry rang out, "Here's the bridegroom, come out and meet him." Then all the virgins woke up and trimmed their lamps. The foolish ones said to the wise, "Give us some of your oil, our lamps are going out." "No," they replied, "there may not be enough for both us and you. Instead, go to those who sell oil and buy some for yourselves." But while they were on their way to buy the oil, the bridegroom arrived. The virgins who were ready went in with him to the wedding banquet, and the door was shut. Later, the others also came. "Sir, sir," they said, "open the door for us." But he replied, "I tell you the truth, I don't know you." In Psalm 92, verse 6, it says, "The senseless man does not know. Fools do not understand that though the wicked spring up like grass and all evildoers flourish, they will be forever destroyed." Don't build your life without preparing for the return of Christ. Make your life count for him. Make your life count for something. And don't waste it. And the final way that Satan tries to make fools out of us is by having us walk on the road that leads to destruction. Now, the passage I'm going to quote does not actually have the word fool in it, but the concept is certainly implied. Jesus said, "Enter through the narrow gate. For wide is the gate and broad is the way that leads to destruction, and many enter through it. But small is the gate and narrow the road that leads to life, and only a few find it." A friend of mine wrote recently a contemporary song. I'm not going to sing it for you, but I'll read the words. Listen carefully. In the dark of night, when the neon lights paint the city in that glow, from the shadows, players step on stage for the nightly horror show. All the lines are lies. Every actor dies. Pain and sorrow's all they know. But the opening line is, "You'll love it fine where the devil's flowers grow." The foolish and the desperate run from things they leave behind. They chase the neon rainbows and ignore the warning sign. But if they heed this warning and think before they go, they'll never take that troubled path where the devil's flowers grow. Where the devil's flowers bloom at night, their fragrance fills the air. They cast a spell that beckons them and leads into despair. So take this victim's warning. Don't take your pleasure there. For when you fall, you lose it all. And the devil doesn't care. Empty smiles on haunting faces charm the victims with their lie. There's no pity in the shadows for the people passing by. So many people broken by a life that none can know unless they take the troubled path where the devil's flowers grow. Where the devil's flowers grow at night, their fragrance fills the air. They cast a spell that beckons them and leads them to despair. So take this victim's warning. Don't seek your pleasures there. For when you fall, you lose it all. And the devil doesn't care. Only a fool would walk that path that leads to everlasting destruction. And yet Satan paints the picture so beautifully. The world tries to sell it to us. We see it everywhere. And it says, come with us. We'll give you everything you want, everything you desire. But when I was a pastor here for 41 years, I saw so many people who, in spite of the warnings, in spite of the examples, walk the road that leads to destruction. Just recently, someone near and dear to me had to go to a place for rehab because the warnings weren't listened to, and a life became extremely dangerous. My friends, I want to say to you today, don't walk that road. Have the courage to say, no, with Jesus' help, I will not fall for that line. I will not let Satan make my life to be a fool. And so I conclude with this question. Can you say honestly, with the Apostle Paul, I am a fool for Christ? If you can't, whose fool are you?
Thank you for watching Black Rock Church's Sunday service. We're so glad you found us, and we hope this message made you feel more connected to God. In talking about connection, we find that it's super important for people to be connected to others and to community in order to grow in their faith. So if you're in the area, we invite you to join us to worship in a service. You can find out about our times and locations right here on this webpage. We'd also love to help you connect in a group and find people who can walk alongside you as you continue deepening your understanding and faith. And after you get to know us, you might even like to use your gifts to serve on a team. We believe God gave each of us unique gifts that we can use to serve those around us. One body with many different parts. If you're not able to be here in person, don't worry. We have a great online community and many ways for you to join in virtually and talk to us throughout the week. You can also stay in touch on our website, YouTube channel, Facebook, and Instagram. By visiting our website, you can also easily give your offering one time as an online gift or a reoccurring gift. Just click Give at the top. The Bible tells us that tithing is an important part of our relationship with Jesus, and we want to continue to trust God with our lives and our finances. Well, we are so glad you made the choice to get to know us and view one of our services. We hope that you join us next week. Thanks so much for watching.